And so with Alpine on the back foot and the clock ticking, a big question that must be on Pierre Gasly's mind right now is, should I stay or should I go? Since his move away from AlphaTauri to Alpine in 2023, a move which seemed full of promise, finally a works team and himself acting as the final piece in the jigsaw for this French supergroup, his career seems to have somewhat stalled again, especially for this season so far. Now, there have actually been some minor things to celebrate, such as a third place at the Dutch Grand Prix last season, and also beating his more embedded teammate Esteban Ocon in the Drivers' Championship last year. But overall, I do sense that Gasly is no longer happy to be there. Rumours are suggesting that he's looking for a way out, and the partnership between himself and the team just isn't looking as promising as it once was. Now, in the interests of fairness, it does take two to tango, so both parties in Gasly and Alpine do have to share the blame here to some degree. And also from what I see, Alpine have allowed this grudge between himself and Ocon to kind of grow and fester, rather than stomping out at the first opportunity and ending it for the best of the team once and for all. And also that kind of spark that Gasly had during his time at AlphaTauri does kind of seem to be fading. When you see him being interviewed lately, especially so far this season, he just kind of seems to be a bit dead behind the eyes. Not that he was ever on the Ace Ventura level of enthusiasm, but you don't have to be an expert to see that this is not a happy man and he doesn't believe the PR gumph that the team is telling him to say. So not a good state of affairs, and one which does lead me to question, should Gasly stick where he is at Alpine, or should he try his luck somewhere else? But before we jump in, give that subscribe button below a little click, as it really helps the channel and I want to give you more content more often. So prior to Alpine, Gasly was on a pretty good trajectory, I would say. There were ups and downs, but overall it was acceptable. From his time at Toro Rosso, which then saw promotion to Red Bull, followed by a subsequent demotion back to AlphaTauri, this would have ruined a lot of other drivers. But this may have been a blessing in disguise, because it seems that Gasly really grew during his time at AlphaTauri. He won his first Grand Prix there, and in the first 2 seasons he was a regular in the top 10. However, in the third season there, he kind of wasn't. Later that season, Oscar Piastri became a meme lord, and then magically, our boy Gasly was driving for Alpine. Now, I don't need to go over again what a decline and an absolute cluster the Alpine F1 team seems to be, but I'm guessing that the team is not what was promised when Gasly signed that little piece of paper. And I'd love to hear what you guys think on this, but I sense that Gasly's never quite felt at home at Alpine, especially in the same way that perhaps Esteban Ocon seems to be. He just doesn't give out the impression that he belongs there. Now, when you saw him in his AlphaTauri gear a few years ago, you'd think, yes, that is Pierre Gasly. But in the current pink, black and blue setup, it just pales in comparison, and also he just seems completely exhausted all the time. And perhaps the environment and the way of doing things at Alpine just doesn't suit him. So we're left with the question of what now and what are his options. So he could remain at Alpine, and I'm sure the team would be very happy to have him. However, there are advantages and disadvantages, exactly the same as there are if he decided to join any other team. And his teammate Ocon has made absolutely no secret at all that he's looking elsewhere for a drive. And also made the excellent decision to remind everyone that Toto Wolff is still his manager and that he is in fact still a Mercedes junior driver. Top tactics there, mate. Now, if Gasly did remain at Alpine, a few things would have to fall in place in order for this to work out. Firstly, and also a pretty obvious one, Alpine's performance must improve. Now, we all have a great laugh at Alpine from time to time. A team with a budget of that size and backing, yielding the kind of results they do, is pretty entertaining to watch. But I do sense that Alpine have now hit, or just hit, rock bottom, and they might actually flatline for a bit. But with all their backing and budgets and everything, I think it's inevitable that they will actually rise up the order once again. I sense that despite the chaos that we see from the exterior, they are in fact lining themselves up for a return to the sort of competitive midfield next season or the one after. But for now, this current season is a complete write-off. And also with the new regulations coming in, could Renault in fact deliver a new power unit that reminds everyone that Renault used to be an absolute monster when it came to engine building? One of the most successful engine builders of all time. Now, another factor which I think will decide if Gasly thinks it's worthwhile staying is if Esteban Ocon decides to leave. Now, the pair of them as teammates is absolutely energy sapping for everyone involved. It's also exhausting for both and has to create this level of awkwardness within the team. And also from my point of view as a content creator, trying to find photos of Gasly and Ocon together that aren't the regular 5 or 6 in heavy rotation is almost impossible. And as I said, partially this is the fault of Alpine for not squashing this before it all got out of hand, but also you got to point the blame at Gasly and Ocon themselves as well for not burying the hatchet and understanding that this whole thing is bigger than both of them. Now, if I had to put money on it, I would expect Ocon to stay and Gasly to leave. But if it was the other way round and Alpine signed a new, young, non-French driver to partner Gasly, I expect there might be a new level of peace and harmony within the team. This then extrapolates across the team, positivity is infectious, and everything could all improve at once. But then despite everything, he might just have to admit that Alpine may not be the place to be, and getting out now could be the way to go, especially when you consider how much longer he's got left in his career. I mentioned earlier that the team must now hit rock bottom and may flatline, although they are expecting a rise. If this does not happen, this could be the catalyst for Renault to sell the team and say, "Non, monsieur," and leave Formula One altogether. And this sort of thing, combined with the bubbling young talent in Formula 2 and Formula 3 that are dying to get a drive into Formula One, could leave Gasly without a seat in Formula One altogether. Now, recently in the media, there have been reports that Gasly has been in discussion and having negotiations with Williams, a team that Alpine is just fractionally above right now. And also a team that is crying out for a guy just like Pierre Gasly to replace the failing experiment in Logan Sargent. And actually, a lineup of Gasly and Albon at Williams is intriguing and has the potential to be a very exciting one. In fact, both of them have come from a very similar path, coming from Red Bull and their sister teams. Both also are very likeable and popular drivers, which would serve Williams very well on the PR side, and I sense they would also push each other very well on track in a kind of constructive and healthy way. I do wonder if part of how we see Pierre Gasly right now is him not responding, shall we say, to Alpine's style of management. And could Williams, or more accurately James Vowles, do a better job of this and create something more to his liking? And let's not forget, when James Vowles arrived at Williams from Mercedes, he found Alex Albon, who appeared to be a broken man from his time at Red Bull previously. Vowles put his arm around Albon, built up his confidence, and now he looks like a new driver. And I do wonder, could Vowles actually do exactly the same thing with Gasly? Overall though, Williams could serve as a great fresh start for Gasly, and I think offers the best opportunity to fix a career which might otherwise have seemed to have stalled slightly. And when I say best opportunity, I mean aside from Alpine and Williams, who else would be in a position now to pick him up? You're looking at either Sauber or Haas. And yes, Sauber are looking very prosperous right now as they will convert into Audi, and are probably looking for a bigger fish, shall we say, to partner Hülkenberg moving forward. So therefore, you've got a choice between Williams and Haas, and I would probably say for his career, Williams would be the best place to go every time. And I know I'm being very positive around Williams, but I'm not completely delusional. They are having an absolute shocker of a season so far, and sometimes when you look at races, you do wonder, do they possibly have the worst car on the grid right now? You know, we joke about Alpine having a nightmare this season, but Williams, they are in serious trouble right now. But the one saving grace from this whole thing is that Alpine are doing things exactly the same as they always have been and are yielding these sorts of results. When you see Alpine's recent performances, although they got 1 point, okay, that's one thing. Meanwhile, Williams are trying to overhaul and modernise their entire Formula One operation, which may lead to sacrificing a season or two in order to make those gains and climb back up the order. So if you see what I'm on about, Alpine are doing things as they always have done and are expecting a miraculous change. Meanwhile, Williams have admitted their faults, they've understood what they've done wrong, they're trying to correct them, and are hoping for a promising performance sometime in the future. Yes, this season's not going according to plan, but they are actively looking to try and change things for the future. And also, Gasly really doesn't have time to be messing around now. He must commit and embed himself in a team before this crop of young drivers from Formula 2 and Formula 3 make their way up the order, especially as we head into 2026, where the prospect of having a young driver on board looks quite attractive and exciting for teams. So Gasly must lock himself in a team and remind everyone just how good he can be. So at the end of the day, it just seems that Alpine hasn't worked out as planned for Gasly. It didn't become the French Ferrari that we were promised, and right now in fact looks a bit more like the French Minardi. And so from this, I think Gasly would find a good home at Williams for perhaps the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. If he plays his cards right, I sense that himself and Albon would be a formidable lineup for Williams moving forward, and could be just what the team needs to climb back up the order and start getting podium places. I'm not talking about wins yet, because that's just mental. And also, it wouldn't hurt having a race winner in one of those seats again. So what do you guys think? Should Gasly stay or go? Alpine or Williams? Or maybe even somewhere else? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm Paul, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Cheers.